Hey there, Boozmeisters. Welcome back to the Peach Pod After Dark. I am Jeff, uh, and I am also really hung up on superhero sex organs.
Mm.
Joining me on the other line, my host.
I'm Leslie, and I can't express myself monosyllabically enough for you to understand.
Very nice. So we are talking about Mallrats this week.
Ooh.
So the spelling connection should be obvious. This is a Shannon Doherty vehicle. So this is it's not our first movie. Obviously, we at some point we'll have to watch Heather's, but this one just felt right. It felt like a good place to start. I am an avowed Kevin Smith fan. Have been from Clerks on, and I think it's worth talking. I think it's worth talking a little bit about Kevin Smith. But before I go, just and never stop talking. Um, you like this movie? I can't. I think you suggested it. So I'm excited that you like it because I also very much like this movie. But talk about Mallrats. When did you first see Mallrats? Because I know it wasn't in 1995.
It was with you.
Okay. When did we watch Mallrats?
I think we watched Mallrats right around the time when I first moved to Chicago.
Okay.
And you all had me over for dinner, and I think it was one of the first ones we watched, and so I have happy memories with it.
Oh, yay.
I think I introduced Walter to it. It's so funny watching it. I've realized it's kind of like Napoleon Dynamite in that watching it alone is not as much fun as watching it with people.
That's true. Yeah, that is true.
It's funny, but unfortunately you see more of the cracks
Sure.
and some of the stuff. Even though I feel like this is one of those you have to remind yourself, it's a comedy. It's a 90s comedy. Just relax.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot in here that is not, it wasn't PC at the time, but that's why it's funny.
Yeah.
That's why they're jokes. So it's I'm glad that me being out here doing the Lord's work is bearing fruit, because that was 11 years ago, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's always interesting to me. There's this thing that I realized a few years ago that that I find interesting about memory and what sticks for people and what doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Like the number of times I have conversations with people who are like, blah, 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 you said this. And I'm like, well, that certainly sounds like something I would say. I have no memory of saying that, but I believe you. So I don't remember us watching Mallrats because I've watched Mallrats a bunch. But yeah. I love that you remember it. I love that it's one of those things that when you think of Mallrats, you remember being here at this time.
Yeah.
And that's always nice. That's very fun.
And it just, again, rekindles my love for Jason Lee and all of his outrageous behavior. I've been leaning towards Aubrey Plaza type roles, and I still will, but I would love to find something like Jason Lee because it's so much fun to play angry.
Sure.
Which, of course, you're not supposed to play the anger. You've just got to be it. But I feel like for comedy,
is back on the escalator.
It's my favorite part.
It's so funny. I say that all the time. Whenever anyone repeatedly does something that baffles me, I use that line.
Yeah. That kid is on the fucking escalator again. And Jay, every time he would be like, knock it off. Hilarious.
Yeah. He's trying the Jedi mind shit.
Stop it, man. Knock it off.
Knock it off. Yeah, I like it when Jay's the voice of restraint.
Yeah.
It's pretty fun. So was this your first Kevin Smith movie, or had you seen other things? And have you seen other things since? Like, how much of a Kevin Smith completist are you? I'm guessing not as much as me.
Not as much as you. After watching this, though, I would say watching this for the third time now, this was my first Kevin Smith film. I have tried watching Clerks. I don't know where I was at the time and what happened, and I didn't finish it. I would like to try it again because, again, I really liked this. Clerks is an iconic piece of his work, so I feel like surely I've got to like that. I forget. I know I have IMDb in front of me, but I'll just ask you, like, what other stuff has he done again?
So he did Clerks, and then Mallrats, and then Chasing Amy.
Oh yes, I have seen that.
Yeah, which I really, really like. I haven't watched it in a long time, but I love Chasing Amy. Dogma.
Yes, seen that.
Yeah, which I... Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think I liked that one better than Chasing Amy, but all of these deserve a rewatch, honestly.
And then Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Nope, haven't seen that.
For my money, that's the funniest of his movies. It is one gag set piece after another, and it is funny. I mean, it's just funny start to finish. And Jersey Girl, which, you know, that movie was filmed at the start of Benifer. Like, Benifer was beginning when they filmed that movie. Yeah. So there's a whole pop culture-ness about Jersey Girl, but for me, it's not my favorite. Then he's done Clerks 2 and Clerks 3. He did these very strange digressions. He did this horror movie called Red State, which is pretty interesting. And he did what I think is probably, it's not my favorite of his movies, but it's one of the reasons that I like him so much. And it's the movie... All I can think of is Walrus Yes and Walrus No. Tusk. The movie Tusk. Are you familiar with Tusk?
I've heard of it. I feel like I remember hearing about it when it came out, but that could be completely wrong.
So here's the thing with Tusk that I think is fascinating, and it's one of the reasons why I just think Kevin Smith is great. This whole thing started on his podcast, Smodcast, where they were reading what turned out to be a fake news story, but it was a story about a guy who put an ad in the paper in Canada, looking for a roommate to live in his house rent free. The only stipulation was that he had to wear a walrus costume the entire time he lived there, and that tickled the shit out of Kevin Smith and Scott Mosier, just as an idea. And it morphed into this whole thing about, instead of making someone wear the walrus suit, what if somebody put an ad in the paper, got somebody to their house, however they did it, and through body modification, turned them into a walrus. And it's a fucked up, weird little horror movie.
Oh my.
And it follows the story structure of Psycho, which is phenomenal. It's such a weird choice to have, like... You've seen Psycho, yes?
No, I have not.
Then I'm not going to say another word.
Okay.
I don't know what you know about Psycho, but after you watch it, I will tell you how I ruined it for my college girlfriend. And how I learned that
relationship.
No. Our relationship extended well past when I ruined Psycho for her. But I did learn a lesson about spoiling things. So when we showed Liam Psycho last weekend for the first time, he's 12, I didn't tell him anything. I didn't tell him anything about the movie, and we just watched it. And he liked it. He didn't, it's black and white and it's a little slow and whatever. But so I won't tell you how Tusk mirrors the story structure of Psycho, but it does. But the real thing about it that I find so wonderful is he had this silly ass idea, Kevin Smith, and he put it out on Twitter. And he said, "Do you think I should make this movie?" Reply Walrus yes if you think so, and Walrus no if you don't. And Walrus yes, hashtag Walrus yes won.
Nice.
Because of that seed of silliness, he created a movie about a guy who turns another guy into a walrus.
Oh my God.
And it is a deeply weird movie. I mean, I'm not going to tell you that you're going to like it.
Yeah.
But it's fucking weird. And I was entertained the entire time as I'm watching this bizarre mental experiment that is happening on the screen. That he got funding for, that he spent time on, that he created. And I love that he just chased this idea down a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And ended up with a movie about Justin Long being turned into a walrus.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that makes me think of Swiss Army Man, you know, movies like that, or The Lobster, or Banshees of Inisherin. Like,
Banshees is a very different movie.
And no, I'm sure it is. And like, it's weird. And it's delightfully weird up until a point when it's no longer funny.
Yeah, I actually really liked that movie quite a bit.
I did too, but you know, we've had a discussion about content warnings. That's totally a movie I wanted a content warning for.
But too much feckin'?
Huh?
Too much feckin'?
No.
No. Content warning, feckin'.
I just, like, would I have still been upset? Probably. But I would not have been so devastated.
The animal part. The animal
yeah.
Part. Yeah. I'd forgotten about that. No, you're right. That was a, what the fuck is happening in this movie? Yeah.
So fucked up.
Yeah. I would watch that movie again. Have you seen, speaking of those two guys, have you seen In Bruges?
No.
Oh my God. It's like a fucking fairy tale. Watch In Bruges.
Okay.
Like 1,000% watch In Bruges. It is delightful. It is a wonderful movie. It has charm coming out of its asshole. It is so nice. I love In Bruges. It's so great.
I swear we'll find a movie one day. Well, I guess it was this movie because you knew I had seen Mallrats, but you know.
Where I say, have you seen this? And you say yes.
And I will not slink away in shame. I will go, yes, I have.
There is no shame. No, this is a thing. We were texting about this earlier this week, and it's kind of related. I gave up on shame a long time ago.
Yeah.
I found it to be an incredible waste of emotional energy. I'd rather just enjoy things. And I strongly buck against the notion of a guilty pleasure. There's no such thing. Just enjoy it. If you like it, you like it, just like it. You don't have to explain it to anybody, although we're doing a whole lot of explaining about the very specific way that I like 90210 on the mothership of this podcast. But it's not done, from my perspective, it's not a defense of my enjoyment of it. It's just an exploration of my enjoyment of it. So no guilty pleasures, no shame. Just, see things and like them. Or don't like them. And then don't watch them again. You know what I mean? It's great.
Free will is amazing.
It is. And there's so much fun stuff to see. And whenever someone is like, have you seen this? And I'm like, nope, but maybe I will now. And, you could watch everything that I bring up and go, nope, yes, nope. And that would be fine. Totally fine. We are not as humans exactly the same.
Yep.
So we like different stuff, and that's great. So we tangentized like crazy right there. We ended up in Bruges, and
I know.
it's because we were talking about Walrus. Yes. So yeah, I love that Kevin Smith chases whimsy wherever it goes and tells the story that he is interested in telling and is unapologetically himself.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a wonderful it's a wonderful lesson to take in life and in creative arts. And he also did the thing where he bet on himself. He paid for Clerks famously on like 4 maxed out credit cards. It was like $37,000 in credit card debt to make this movie he wanted to make,
Wow.
which was basically about his life, working in a convenience store next to a video rental store and being rude to the customers. I think that's pretty much
Amazing.
what the movie was, and it's funny and it's irreverent, and it is the way that uh, people like me talk. And it was the way we talked before Clerks came out. But when Clerks came out, and Mallrats is even more of the same thing, of Brody talks and thinks the way I talk and think. There's side references, there's irrational, not anymore. I'm old now and I don't have the irrational rage I used to have at things. But like Brody gets so angry about stuff. But he has the gift of self knowledge.
Yeah.
Because by the end of it, when he's talking to TS, he's like, why would you listen to me? I don't know what I'm talking about ever. Most of the time, I'm pulling things out of my ass. Guilty.
Yeah. No, and I still feel his irrational rage at things, but New York will do that to you.
Yeah. No, I get that.
I'm getting better at just taking a moment and being like, it's okay. This
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to bother you.
Mm-hmm.
This dude man spreading a little next to you, he doesn't mean any harm. It's okay.
He's just there. I've
He's just
taken
there.
to I've taken to doing this when we drive and someone does something baffling. I no longer flip people off. I just give them
Smart.
a big old sarcastic thumbs up. I'm like, good job. The choices you're making are excellent. And only I know that I don't mean it. He just sees me giving him a thumbs up.
Yeah.
And I've just gotten to the point with stuff like that where I'm like, this is whatever day you're having that made you do that. I hope it gets better.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Because that was a terrible choice. And I hope you don't continue making choices like that. I'm not perfect, but I've gotten much better at not getting super irritated at little things like that.
Yeah.
Like the kid being back on that escalator.
And you know what? He has a good reason for being upset about it.
Sure. Yeah, he takes it too far, He wants the child to die just so that the mother learns a lesson.
Just so the mother learns a lesson. And then what do we hear later on in the background? Oh, I can't go climb the escalator.
Yeah, that's a wonderful payoff. Right there, off camera, just in the background.
Yeah.
So I did jot down some topic notes of things we could talk about, but what do you have? What interests you about Mallrats, other than the Shannon Doherty of it all? After you watched it this week, what's worth talking about?
I noted the language because I thought I love how they speak in this, and I'm realizing it's just a reflection of the time because
Mm-hmm.
Dawson's Creek does a similar thing. A little. No, I'm not going to say less angry because it's still angry,
Mm-hmm.
but they definitely, I would say, wax more poetic,
Mm-hmm.
whereas it feels more natural with how these kids are talking in Mallrats.
It does, except for when it doesn't. Except for when there. Let's see. I I want to get the words right, and I don't know if they're going to be listed in here. But sometimes it's a little bit too wordy for reality. Um, like there's the scene when they break into the line at the comic book store, and the Tell Him Steve Dave line, the Tell Him Steve Dave part of the movie,
Mm-hmm.
where TS is like, when you're finished with this uh, tough guy back and forth, like but there's way too many words in it, and nobody really talks like that. So, but there's like this whole back and forth with where TS yells at Brody, and he uses way more words than any human being would use in that context. It's just it's too much. But this is another one of those. Dawson's is built off of the '90s.
Oh yeah.
The dialogue that Kevin Williamson, is that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah, wrote for Dawson's Creek, and he wrote Scream, right? 90% sure I'm right about that.
I think you are. I don't know.
It's the same thing. This movie is a year before Scream. It feels like Scream was '96.
Yeah, I think so.
So, like the way that the characters talk in Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs and Clerks, and then in Mallrats, and that is, I think Kevin Williamson took that to the next level and applied it to horror movies, and then he took it and really applied it to teen dramas, because this isn't the way that Steve and David talk.
No, definitely not.
Not even, and this isn't a spoiler, but not even 4 years down the road when it's 1995 instead of 1991, they're not talking like this. They're still talking like Brandon and Steve and David.
To be fair, I've noticed in my recent rewatch of Dawson, they lose some of that in the college seasons, and it's really disappointing. I'm like, now's the time to be talking like this, people.
True.
But it's like they got into college and they said, no, we're good.
And then the Sorkin too. Like, Sorkin's dialogue is similarly extra verbose. And it's great, and it's lyrical, and you love to listen to it, and you love to hear it. And it's funny to see people put that much detail into their insults or their complaints or whatever it is that they're on about. But it is over the top, but it works so well, and it's why you love Jason Lee in this movie. He's so funny. It's just all attitude.
Oh yeah, yeah. So language was a big thing that I noticed. It's funny for some reason. Rewatching it, and I had some trouble with the rewatch. Like in terms of tech stuff. So I wasn't as able to do as thorough note taking as I would usually do. So I'm interested to hear more of like the notes you took and like to see where I can add on there.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't. I've gotten away from taking notes while I watch.
Okay.
Mostly, I take it in, and this one I didn't rewatch because I've seen it. I have seen this movie a bunch. But I wasn't. I feel the same way about this that I did a little bit with Once Upon a Time, where I wasn't 100% sure where we were going to go with it. And I didn't have the Love Boat realization for this one that I had for Once Upon a Time. That was like, well, that's the light bulb.
Yeah.
But one of the things I wanted to ask you about, because this is a generational situation,
okay,
is what is your relationship to the mall?
Right before you finished that sentence, I was like, I hope he's going to ask about the mall. Because yes, I have a good relationship with the mall. I miss going to the mall. Mm-hmm. I still find that to be also a source of comfort when I'm in a strange new city, just getting to walk around, look at the shops, maybe get a cookie or some other confectionery.
The food court?
Yeah. Or,
Or an
something adjacent to the food court.
snacking.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But of course, well, before I get to how it's become now, I want to get a little anecdotal because that was something like my mom, sister, and I would do on weekends, especially. That was
sure.
we go and get some school clothes, or it was always a big deal when we got to go to Louisville.
Hmm.
Like even when
Oh,
we
yeah.
lived in Clarksville and it was much quicker to get there, like, and the way I distinguished the malls as a child, because Mall St. Matthews for some.
Can I guess?
Oh yeah, tell me.
Okay.
Interesting question.
Shut up, Siri.
Oxmoor had the Disney store.
Yes. But
That
I
was
would.
it?
I don't think I. So we didn't get to go to that one as often, and I think Oxmoor was easier to remember. But
Okay.
for some reason, because Mall St. Matthews had those like horsies on the
This mall has a horsey.
yeah, they had a horsey on their board, whatever you want to call it, their big
Sure.
signage.
Yeah.
Naturally, I would just call it the Derby Mall.
Okay. I get that.
It would drive my sister nuts, but I'm like, it has horses.
That's right.
We're
What are
in
you gonna do?
Louisville.
Yeah.
What else would I call it?
Yeah. So, for people who aren't from Louisville or Southern Indiana, there are two malls in Louisville, and they are separated from one another by a street, basically. Like
Yep.
there's an overpass of the highway, but they're just across the street from each other, and they're big. They're both very big malls. So you could go to one and never consider going to the other. Because got to get out of this parking lot, got to get back on Shelbyville Road, got to go 3 stoplights, take a left, turn into Mall St. Matthews. Like they're right next to each other, and they're both gigantic. So I do have a Mall St. Matthews story though. Did you ever go to the mall on Black Friday?
Oh, absolutely not.
I did once when I was in college. We decided this is worth doing once just to see.
Yeah.
And so this was probably about the time of Mallrats. Like it would have been about 95. That's probably a pretty safe bet. So Thanksgiving of 95, Black Friday, we go to Mall St. Matthews. And I'm not like one of those like 5 a.m. lunatics.
No.
So we went at like 11, whatever, normal people being awake time. And this one you could still smoke inside.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. We were in there for about 10 minutes. The mix of about 83 different perfumes and tobacco smoke in the air was nauseating.
Oh, my God.
It was so hard to, and we looked for parking for about a half an hour. It was so hard to find a spot. We got in, and I was like, we have to leave. I'm going to puke. Like, this is so gross. I can't be in here anymore.
Smelled like a brothel.
What's that?
Smelled like a brothel.
Oh, my God. I would prefer the brothel.
It's so interesting, too. And again, this is like totally a local only thing, but the trajectory that both of those malls have taken, like, because poor Mall St. Matthews has just diminished.
Mm-hmm.
It is so dead. It's not as empty as the mall back in Portland that I think it was Lloyd Center that Walter and I used to walk around, and man, that place was dead. I mean, it was it was this close to nature taking over. And then Oxmoor is super nice now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it used to be, well, if we want to go anywhere first, we got to go to Mall St. Matthews because they have the food court and they've got the good food. But now Oxmoor has restaurants,
Yeah, that's true.
Very upscale clothing that, we'll look into, but we're definitely not going to buy.
Right.
And the Disney store still. Thank you.
I mean, that's why I knew the difference between the two of them. One of them had the Disney store.
Oxmoor also, I don't think, ever had a bookstore in my lifetime, whereas Mall St. Matthews had Doubleday.
Okay.
And the day they closed it and turned it into a Lane Bryant was a very depressing one.
That is sad.
But, Lane Bryant needs its place, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
But next door to the bookstore.
So, as discussed, I'm older. So when I was in high school, that's when they opened the new mall in Clarksville. So Clarksville had two malls, one right next to each other. Green Tree Mall was the old mall. River Falls Mall was the new mall.
Yes.
And River Falls Mall, when you're 15, was awesome.
Yeah.
There was two floors. This mall had 2 floors. You kidding me? 2 floors? Like there's an upstairs. So like
a carousel?
In the upstairs, there was a full carousel. There was an arcade. There was a putt-putt course, miniature golf.
Yes.
There was a full 10-screen movie theater. It was everything. It's all you needed. You didn't need to go anywhere else. You could go and have a very mediocre meal with 10 of your friends at Ruby Tuesdays and go upstairs to the movies. And if you had some extra time, you can go play in the arcade. You can waste 50 cents on Dragon Slayer, the biggest ripoff game in the history of arcades. Or you could go play miniature golf. I didn't ride the carousel so much, but I think there were even like little go-karts, weren't there? Like a tiny little go-kart course?
I think there were. And it's so sad because I feel like I only got to experience it for the briefest of times anyway, but also my mom she didn't want to go to the mall for us to play games. Like, I get that. If we got to play anything, it was because my dad wanted to go play mini golf, and so we would do that sometimes. Mm-hmm. Or we'd see movies there. But as for the other stuff, I mean, I completely forgot there was an arcade. I don't think I even registered that the Ruby Tuesdays was in there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I do think they had go-karts. And I mean, I think they had I distinctly remember the little like river that they had running through. Uh-huh. And I think there was like a boat thing you could do, not one that you could ride in, obviously, but like you could drive, like a motor car or something. Mm-hmm. I'm not coming up with the right terms because I didn't have those toys as a kid. But
I wasn't a remote control boat car guy myself as a kid. But
the parrots would come down. Do you remember those?
I don't remember the parrots.
Oh man, they had these like mechanical parrots that would come down once every hour and just start like gabbing to each other. It was so stupid, but that mall had the most delightful
cheese kind of deal.
Huh?
It's like a Charles Entertainment cheese kind of deal.
Oh my god. Less scary because these things weren't huge.
Fuel for you?
And they weren't trying to sing to me. But no, I love that mall. I'm so sad that
recently, Kevin Smith related, he has purchased a movie theater in his hometown, Red Bank, New Jersey, and he does a lot of showings where he'll like do a Q&A afterwards and stuff like that and turn it into like a big event. And I thought, man, wouldn't it be cool if like he bought a building next door and turned it into a Movies, which is like the fast food restaurant the fake fast food restaurant that he created for movies. And then he put in like a Quick Stop and put in like all these different businesses related to the movies that he's done. And wouldn't that be kind of fun if it was like teen friendly and it was a place where you could just go and you could hang out and you could know that it was safe, that kids they could get into some nonsense, but not going to get into real trouble, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's like, how fun would that be? And then I thought, oh shit, I just invented the mall. Damn it. This is what I do. I invent things that already exist and don't exist any longer.
No, they are a dying breed.
Yeah, and it's sad because the my high school years in the mall were great, and I worked in the mall. Did you ever work in the mall?
No, I didn't.
Oh yeah, I worked in River Falls Mall at Genghis Formal Wear
Oh.
and at Structure, which then became like Express for men.
Oh,
And it was
cool.
like Structure and Express were next to each other. I worked in Structure, but it was the same company. And now it's Express and Express Men. So that's where I worked and dressed myself all through high school.
Nice.
I didn't work there all through high school. I worked there at Christmases and stuff.
Well, yeah.
I did dress myself there. So I never made any money. But I just turned around and spent it all back on the clothes. But the mall was the center of my existence when I was a kid. And I wasn't a Brody mall rat. I wasn't there walking around doing nothing.
Yeah.
But I spent my fair amount of time trying to see the schooner. Like those, do you remember those or were you too little for those?
No, I remember them. I never cared for them, though. They gave me a headache.
Sure. I loved them. Because you just stare at them, you're like, oh, look at that. And you kind of gotta make yourself a little cross-eyed, and you gotta look past you gotta look deeper into the picture than the surface. And if you're kind of cross-eyed and do that, then it all becomes 3D for you. And poor Ethan Suplee, not able to see the sailboat.
I know.
Very sad.
Speaking of which, he's our Boy Meets World tie-in.
Oh, is he?
Oh, yeah. He's one of the famous bullies from that show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, and I recommended this to you in text earlier this week, but My Name is Earl is a strong watch. It is very funny. And it's Jason Lee and Ethan Suplee.
Oh, man. I didn't know he was in it, too.
Yeah. His brother. They play brothers.
Oh, wow.
Wakey, wakey, hands off Snakey. So, yeah, give yourself some joy and watch My Name is Earl. It's very funny.
All right.
Something else I can't imagine that you know this if you've only seen this movie with me and this time and maybe one other time.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen this movie edited for television?
Oh, man. I bet it's not great.
It's great in the way that it's terrible. Because have you ever seen we've discussed The Big Lebowski, have we not? But you haven't seen it?
I have seen it.
You have seen it.
I've only seen it once, though, and that's one of those that needs a rewatch.
It needs like 4 rewatches, and then you'll be like, this is the greatest movie I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But remember the scene so the reason I bring it up is, for my money, there are 2 leaders in the clubhouse for most ridiculous TV edit dub.
Okay.
One of them is, this is what happens, Larry. This is what happens when you find a stranger in the Alps. Are you watching, Larry? This is what happens when you find a stranger in the Alps. That's what they have Walter saying when he smashes up Larry's car, instead of, this is what happens, Larry, when you fuck a stranger in the ass.
Oh, my God.
Find a stranger in the Alps. So, this is what happens, Larry, when you find a stranger in the Alps.
Yep.
Is probably my favorite. Yeah, it's so terrible. But my second favorite is in Mallrats. After Jay gets the 2 contestants so high that they pass out, and TS comes up to him, and Jay says, all it took was a fat chronic blunt. In the TV version, he said, all it took was a fast karate chop.
No.
It's the greatest. It's so dumb. Doesn't make any sense. It doesn't even match the mouth movements. It's very silly.
I grew to hate those lip dubs for TV so much because they just sounded ridiculous. And
although for years I thought the dog in The Jerk was named Stupid.
Oh no.
I saw it on TV, and then I saw like the real version. I was like, shithead. I thought that dog's name was Stupid. So yeah, you miss some things, but you gain some other things when you watch the TV edits. And that's, we don't have a lot of TV edits anymore. We watched recently My Cousin Vinny.
Oh, nice.
Which is a movie that is the very definition of a movie. It's a TBS movie. If that movie is on TBS on a Saturday afternoon, I'm watching the whole goddamn thing. Can't possibly turn that movie off. It's great start to finish. But I'd only seen it on TBS for like 25 years. We put it on one day, and I was like, there's a lot of cursing in this movie.
Yep.
Like, I didn't remember any of this because it just wasn't there. It wasn't part of my experience of My Cousin Vinny because of the TV edits.
Oh, yeah.
Another thing totally different that's worth bringing up, I think, at least it's interesting to me, and I know it's interesting to Kev, is that Mallrats is in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yes. Oh, such an incredible link.
Yes, but so not just because Stan Lee is in the movie, which he is, but have you seen Miss Marvel?
You mean Captain Marvel?
Captain Marvel. Miss Marvel is the TV show.
Absolutely, I've seen Captain Marvel.
Okay, so you remember Stan Lee's cameo in Captain Marvel is him on the bus reading the script for Mallrats as he goes there to do his performance.
Yeah, I was thrilled.
Yeah, I was like, look at that! So the movie Mallrats is something that Tony Stark might have watched.
Of course he did.
Like that's I love those little threads. It's just kind of wonderful that Mallrats exists in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and in Mallrats, they talk about all of these people that Tony Stark knows.
Yeah.
Like if Tony Stark watched it, he would be like, wait a minute, that guy invented Banner?
Yeah.
That's confusing. And who are the X-Men? I've never met any Fantastic Four.
I always forget just how many characters Stan Lee created. And so I always get warm and fuzzy when I see him because, still too soon, miss him.
Sure.
And I don't know why, but I hate to use this term, but getting some zaddy vibes from Stan Lee in this. I was like, oh, all right.
You're feeling it, huh?
Was.
I like it.
I didn't have any better options in that movie.
So we should most definitely, while we're giving Stan his flowers, definitely not forget to mention Steve Ditko and the other people that Stan Lee collaborated with.
Oh, yes.
When he created all of these characters and who don't get the credit that he does because, one, they didn't live as long, and two, they were not the consummate salesman that Stan Lee was. Yeah. So, those guys don't get the love that they deserve because they didn't get to be in Mallrats and do cameos in every Marvel movie. Yeah. But, shouts to Steve Ditko. But also, Stan's great in this. And I really like the whole conceit of it, that Brody just wants to talk about the superheroes he created, and TS has put Stan Lee up to convince him to get back with his girlfriend by doing the spectacular Spider-Man, what was it, Luck Be a Vulture Tonight or something?
Yeah.
Soliloquy. Yeah, that kind of stuff is amazing. I love it.
I enjoyed it. I had forgotten that it was a fake moment, and I was listening, and I thought, listen, love is great, but come on. Comic book genius?
Nope.
You're not. I'm sorry. No one's going to turn that away for. Okay. And then when he went back and was like, oh, thanks for having me, do that soliloquy, I was like, there we go. Come on.
Although I will say that the gentlemen and bare naked ladies do not agree with you. Because their song, Be My Yoko Ono, which is a very fun little toe tapper if you're not familiar, they have a line that says, I would gladly give up personal genius if you would only be my very own personal Venus. Great,
Wow.
give a musical genius if you would be my very own personal Venus. So they understand the love of a woman is more important than love of your art, the same way that Stan does.
The cynic in me thinks they all just want to get laid.
Well, I mean, a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
Yeah.
So here's a question that I thought of right before we sat down, and I didn't prep you for it, so feel free to take a moment.
Okay.
Which character are you?
Oh, wow. Oh, unfortunately, and I say this lightly. I don't mean unfortunately because I don't like her character, but I think I'm definitely more of the Brandy.
Okay.
Because not gonna say which one or about whom, but my parents definitely did not like a certain someone that I dated.
Okay.
And even though they would swear now that they weren't that obvious about it, I'm like,
Right.
well, a former diary that has now been burnt to a crisp on purpose, not a fire. That
Good.
I chose
Sitting
this
on
to
fire
happen.
bad.
People, catharsis is important. But a certain diary would beg to differ. So I can definitely understand why she would do something to appease her father
Sure.
at the risk of her own relationship. And like it bugged me so much that TS was being such a dick about it, but
Yeah.
So I think I relate to Brandy the most. This is going to sound really weird to say. Part of me wishes I related more to Trish only because I love her intelligence, love her composure. Does she probably have some problems now from having her boundaries set too low?
She had problems then. I mean, let's be real.
Yeah. But Trish is such a cool character.
She is. How realistic is it? Do you think How realistic do you think it is that she got a $20,000 advance from Simon and Schuster? That was the company I think that they named for being the victim of crime.
I think it depends on the state.
15 though. I don't know. I'd have to look up the rules in New Jersey.
But
the police were going to arrest her after the thing with Hamilton.
Even though she was sleeping with LaFours, and I'm like, he's way older than Ben Affleck, but okay.
That's true. But, I mean, he's a badass, but he's not as objectionable a human being as Hamilton is.
Yeah, I think, unfortunately, she could totally have gotten that grant, but it depends on what states, and I'm not going to say which ones because I don't want any listeners to be offended.
That's true. West Virginia.
Utah.
I got kicked once under the table for making a West Virginia joke because I didn't know that the lady across the table was from West Virginia. She said something about Kentucky, and I mean, I'm one to slag on Kentucky all day long. But I said, no, this is not West Virginia we're talking about, and she kicked me hard. I was like, ow! Somebody's mom? Like, because it was in college, it was like somebody I knew. It was like after a football game, we were having dinner at the Lion because that's what you do.
Yes.
And this lady straight kicked me in the shin, and it was pretty funny.
Wow.
Yeah. So I feel like Brody is my animagus, my Patronus.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, because I'm overly verbose in the way that Brody is. I have very strong opinions about things, and I'm not afraid to share them the way Brody does. I've never walked around with a sippy cup like that, but it's a smart idea. And I will fully admit that I don't know what I'm talking about, just like Brody did.
I thought you were about to admit to stink palming someone.
I've not, but I met Michael Rooker.
What?
Yeah. So there's a coffee shop down the street, and I don't know, 10 years ago, I'm sitting in the coffee shop, and I hear what could only be Michael Rooker's voice, because he has a very distinctive voice.
Yeah.
I'm like, holy shit, that's Michael Rooker. And I'm looking, and I'm like, and I see him. And no, the first time I saw him there twice. The first time I saw him there, I was in line. I walked in the door, and he walked right past me on the way out the door. And I was like, hey, that was Michael Rooker. Oh, my God. And then the second time I saw him was like 2 years later, same coffee shop. So I'm like, he must live in the neighborhood. And so I talked to him. Like, he was sitting there talking to somebody, and he was having a conversation for a while, and you could tell it was him. And he got up to leave, and so I stood up and I said, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know I'm a big fan. I like a lot of your work, and you live in the neighborhood, blah blah blah." And we chit chat, and so I asked him. I said, "What do people recognize you from? Because you've been in a lot of stuff. Like, what's the thing you get?" And he's like, "Well, it used to be Days of Thunder. I get a lot of Guardians of the Galaxy now.
Nice."
From that. And I said, I'll tell you what it is for me. I was very tempted to come over here and stink palm you.
Oh no.
And he was like, oh, so Mallrats. And I was like, yep, that's where I first sort of, became aware of you. And so I've seen your naked butt and all that stuff. I didn't say that part. But I did think that I was tempted
another
to stink
actor?
palm him. It could, very, very easily could have been. But I did tell him that I was tempted to stink palm him.
That's so funny. That's a good thing that he remembered what you were talking about, because so many actors talk about being approached with like something they said or did, and they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. And you know what? Not an actor, but I mentioned this earlier, I have this thing where I don't remember things I said.
Yeah.
I remember a lot of things that I've watched and listened to, and like I'm really good with song lyrics, like they just stick. And quotes from movies and things like that. I remember things I've taken in. I almost never remember things that I've sent out. And I think that's really what it is like I brought it to me and I kept it. And the things that I wrote or the things that I said, I sent them away.
Yeah.
So I didn't hold on to them. So I totally get that, he may not remember doing it or saying it or whatever. But yeah, I talked to him for about 5 minutes and he was really nice. I haven't seen him there since, but I also don't go and sit in that coffee shop for hours the way I used to and write. I do that at home now. So that's, it's a little easier. Although I do miss the coffee shop. It's kind of nice.
Yeah. There is something really nice and relaxing about getting the right spot and staying there for a few hours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we've talked all around Mallrats, but I don't know how much you need to talk. Like, this movie's very funny. It makes me laugh a lot. But just sitting here and saying, wasn't that part funny? Like, that, I'm not sure that that's a super interesting conversation to have. But it is very funny, and it makes me laugh all the time. And I love the Jay and Bob stuff throughout the movie.
Jay and Bob stuff is great. I just like all the various shenanigans and how they keep coming back to it. Like, and now that I've been watching 90210, it's, and I realized there's only 4 years between that and this for Shannon, and she ages that much.
Right. Oh, but like Mallrats is peak Shannon Doherty. Like, she looks amazing in this movie.
Yeah.
In a way that like first junior year Brenda doesn't look this amazing.
Like, some of this I know is just from, because you see this on so many sitcoms, but like I think Friends is a good one. Like, they all look fine season 1, but like season 3 or 4, they're starting to look hot. They're super in shape.
Right.
I'm sorry, the women, because only the women have to be in shape.
Well, yeah. I mean, the men get to be on drugs.
Yeah, I think David Schwimmer might have been like the only one actively trying to, be in
Yeah.
shape or whatever. This is hearsay on my part, but
Right.
but at one point, and I know like this shouldn't be the only thing we notice, but I mean, all the women had the same body, and I
Mm-hmm.
found myself kind of in my teenage head again, wanting to be like, man, I wish I'd grown to look like them, and I'm like, they didn't look like that as teenagers either. Like these were women in their 20s, but even still, like that was the ideal body type at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, my mom and I always joke, even to this day, if we knew what women were eating or drinking to get the small waist and the big boobs,
Right.
we'll take it.
Right. Right.
No matter how enlightened I get, do I still want that body type? Of course, I'm not perfect. But so, and obviously that's not the only reason this is like peak Shannon, but
Right.
it's
She's really good in this. She's very funny.
Oh, yeah. It's just, I mean, to hear her cadence, because there are things that she says, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I hear whether it's Brenda or it's just Shannon,
Mm-hmm.
it's really cool. And yeah, to get to hear her be so mature. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm only like 14 episodes into seeing her as a kid.
Right.
I'm already like, oh, look at you. Look at what you did.
Yep. Yeah, she's really solid in this. And the young Affleck of it all, Affleck as like prime dickhead is like those early Affleck performances where he is just the douchiest douchebag on the planet. He's so good at that. That and O'Banion and Dazed and Confused and
I think he may look like a lead character, but I think he is so much more interesting as a side character.
yeah. Yeah, I've always liked Ben Affleck. I mean, not everything he's done has been my favorite thing,
No.
but him and Matt Damon are great, and their scene alone in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back is worth the price of admission because they Jay and Bob show up on the set of Good Will Hunting 2 hunting season, and the scene is so funny, and it's stuff like Affleck looking at the camera going, and sometimes you're just in a movie because a friend of yours says that you owe them. And, it's stuff like that. It's so inside and it's so funny, but it also leads to the greatest Ben Affleck line ever, which is when Jay stands up and goes, Affleck, you the bomb in Phantoms, yo! And it's the truth. He is the bomb in Phantom. So, so Mallrats is wonderful. I really like it a lot. It is a very funny movie that feels the whole thing is a nostalgia pill for me because it's
yes,
that 90s mall I spent a lot of time in.
Yeah.
So it's fun.
I'm always a big fan of anything about Friends. And at the end of the day, like, yes, it's two guys, like, trying to get their girlfriends back, but they're just being there for each other and being buddies. And, like, and you see different kinds of friendships all around this movie because, you have those two, T.S. and, I almost said T.S. and Elliot. T.S. and Brody. You've got Jay and Silent Bob. Unfortunately, in typical fashion, you don't see a lot of the women bonding as friends. You do have that one scene, I feel, with Brandy and what's her name from Chasing Amy?
Joey Lauren Adams?
Yes. But unfortunately, it's framed in such a way like, it's just talking about TS.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure this movie passes the Bechdel test.
Absolutely, it does not. But
it was written by a 24-year-old dude.
Yeah, which, He wrote what he knew.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to fault him for that.
Nope. Definitely. And it works. It's a funny movie.
It's funny, and like you said, I think nostalgia pill is the best description.
Yeah, and it's also, and this is another thing that I really like about Kevin Smith is he loves the things he loves, and in Clerks there's a whole Star Wars digression, a big conversation about the the construction workers on the Death Star and whether they deserve to die as part of the like. Because in the second, in Return of the Jedi, the Death Star is still under construction, so there are lots of contractors on board when they blow the thing up. So there's a whole conversation about that, which is like, yes, that's the kind of inane shit you dig into. And then in this one, there's like a whole thing about the thing's thing, and can Reed Richards, can everything stretch? Like there's all of that stuff, and then there's that whole scene where he and Jay run to the alley and do the Batman from, they use the grappling hook, and Jay gives them the where do you get those wonderful toys line from 1989 Batman. And it's just stuff that Kevin Smith liked and put in there, and it's I love that. Put yourself in your movies, put your experiences, put your perspective, put the things you like, put the things that irritate you, like kids on an escalator, whatever it is, put that in your art, and 30 years later we'll still look at it and go, damn, that's funny.
And on the other end of that, to quote Carrie Fisher, take your broken heart and turn it into art.
Yeah. Carrie Fisher, also in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
See, now you should have led with that, because, that's my princess.
Yep, she's pretty great. She plays a nun.
Oh my god.
It's very funny. It's very funny.
I love her.
Yeah, Strike Back is great. So, is there anything more we need to get into with Mallrats, or did we pretty much cover it?
I think we pretty much did. Yeah, this was a very laid-back edition of After Dark, but I liked it.
I don't mean this in a creepy way, but who's your favorite new kid?
My favorite new kid?
Oh, you didn't hear it either. I love this. The first, 8 times I saw this movie, the thing I didn't hear that made me laugh so hard when I finally heard it is when they put the videotape up of Hamilton and Trish the Dish.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody calls me that. Ben Affleck is behind her, and he's going, "Oh yeah, please don't go, girl. Who's your favorite new kid? Call me Joey. Yeah, call me Donnie." It's so funny.
I did hear the "call me Donnie," and I was like, "What?
He gives her a "please don't go, girl," and I'm like, "Dear Lord!" Just finished the movie with a New Kids on the Block, mid-coitus joke is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, who's your favorite new kid? All right, well, I think that probably does it for us this week, Boozemeisters. We will be back next week. We had a little discussion about what we might discuss next week. So, but I don't know, we're still young in building the Peach Pod After Dark.
Yes.
And so we haven't been teasing the next episode the way that we know on the mothership which episode's coming next. So it's easy to say, go watch this. But I think we should probably, because we're thinking ahead a little bit, getting an idea.
Yeah.
And so far, how it's working is that each episode of the Peach Pod After Dark bounces off of a corresponding episode of 90210. So this one we bounced off of Every Dream Has Its Price Tag, the third episode. And this is our third episode. The second episode we did Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Luke Perry's last movie compared to Luke Perry's first appearance in 90210. So I think that for next week's episode, we are going to watch the Glenn Miller story.
Yes.
And here's why I love that we're doing this. Because it really shows how wide-ranging my theory is, that everything comes back to Aaron Spelling. Because the Glenn Miller story was made in like 1954, and it stars Jimmy Stewart. And it's a perfectly fine Jimmy Stewart movie. It's not probably in my top 20 Jimmy Stewart movies, but it's good. And it is directly tied to Brandon dancing to In the Mood after losing his virginity to Cheryl in season 1, episode 4 the first time. So what better way to further explore the world of Aaron Spelling than to go back to Glenn Miller and the Glenn Miller story starring Jimmy Stewart. So find it, I guess, and watch it this week. And maybe we'll talk more about the specifics of the movie and less about the specifics of working in a mall.
Yeah. Maybe.
Glenn Miller working in a mall. I have seen this movie once. I saw it 25 years ago. And I remember enjoying it. But we'll talk about that next week. So Go find yourself a copy of the Glenn Miller story, Booze Meisters, and we will see you here next week.
Bye.
Cheers.
Cheers.